Many people associate pineapples with sprawling tropical plantations, endless sunshine, and carefully managed commercial farms. The idea of harvesting a pineapple from a container on a patio, balcony, or sunny corner of a yard often seems unrealistic. Yet pineapples are surprisingly well suited to container cultivation. In fact, when grown under the right conditions, a potted pineapple plant can produce fruit that is sweeter, richer, and more aromatic than many store-bought pineapples. Success has very little to do with luck or living in a tropical climate. The real advantage of container growing is control. By managing soil, moisture, sunlight, and root conditions, gardeners can create an environment that allows pineapple plants to thrive. When those factors are optimized, even a single plant can reward years of patience with a beautiful golden fruit packed with flavor. The following principles are among the most important for producing healthy pineapple plants and achieving a successful harvest in containers. 1. Start with the right variety. Every successful pineapple begins with selecting the right plant. Many gardeners focus immediately on watering schedules, fertilizers, or potting mixes, but none of those factors can compensate for starting with unsuitable planting material. Choosing the proper variety often determines whether the plant eventually produces a large, flavorful fruit or a small and disappointing harvest. Not all pineapples grow in the same way. Different varieties vary significantly in size, growth rate, fruit quality, and adaptability to containers. Some are bred for commercial production and tend to perform poorly in restricted root environments, while others remain compact and adapt naturally to pot culture. A common approach is growing a pineapple from the crown of a supermarket fruit. While this method can work, it often comes with challenges. Store-bought pineapples are not selected for container performance, and their crowns may have been exposed to treatments designed to prolong shelf life. As a result, growth can be unpredictable, root development may be slower, and fruit production can take considerably longer. For more dependable results, many growers prefer compact or semi-dwarf varieties that naturally perform well in containers. Cultivars such as smooth cayenne, queen, and certain ornamental fruiting types are popular choices because they maintain manageable growth while directing more energy toward fruit development. When selecting a plant, health is critical. Look for leaves that are thick, upright, and deep green in color. Healthy foliage should feel firm and vigorous rather than soft or wilted. The central growing point should appear tight and upright, while the base should be solid and free from soft spots. Yellowing leaves, browning tissue, or signs of rot often indicate problems that can become worse after planting. If you choose to start from a pineapple crown, proper preparation is essential. Carefully remove all fruit tissue from the base because remaining sugars can encourage bacterial growth and decay. After cleaning, allow the crown to dry in a warm location with good airflow for several days. This drying period helps seal the wound and greatly reduces the chance of rot once the crown is planted. After planting, patience becomes one of the most valuable tools a gardener can have. Pineapples naturally devote much of their early energy to root formation. During the first weeks or months, visible growth may seem minimal. However, beneath the soil, the plant is establishing the foundation that will eventually support fruit production. Attempting to speed up this process with excessive watering or heavy fertilization often does more harm than good. Healthy roots create healthy plants, and healthy plants are far more likely to produce large, sweet, high-quality fruit. 2. Select a pot that encourages healthy root growth. The dramatic appearance of pineapple plants often causes gardeners to overestimate the size of container they require. Although the leaves can become long and wide-spreading, the root system remains relatively shallow. Choosing an appropriate container is therefore less about accommodating foliage and more about creating ideal root conditions. Finding the right balance is essential. Containers that are too small restrict root expansion and reduce access to water and nutrients. On the other hand, oversized pots tend to retain excessive moisture, creating conditions that can lead to root diseases and rot. Pineapples perform best when roots have enough room to expand without being surrounded by constantly wet soil. For most container-grown pineapples, a pot holding approximately 5 to 7 gallons provides an excellent balance. This size supports healthy root growth, while allowing the growing medium to dry appropriately between waterings. Drainage is one factor that should never be overlooked. Every container should contain several drainage holes to ensure excess water escapes quickly. Pineapple roots are particularly sensitive to prolonged moisture and can decline rapidly if water accumulates around them. The material of the container also influences plant performance. Plastic pots retain warmth and moisture, making them useful in cooler environments or for indoor cultivation. Terracotta containers allow more air movement through the pot walls and encourage faster evaporation, which can be beneficial in humid climates. Fabric grow bags offer another effective solution by increasing oxygen around the roots and preventing root circling through natural air pruning. Interestingly, pineapples often respond positively to moderate root restriction. When roots are slightly confined but not crowded to the point of stress, the plant may shift its focus away from producing excessive foliage and toward flowering and fruit development. In some cases, a mildly root-bound plant can initiate fruiting sooner than one growing in an oversized container. The objective is not to provide unlimited space. Instead, the goal is to create an environment where roots can anchor the plant securely, access sufficient oxygen, and avoid prolonged exposure to excess moisture. A well-chosen container does far more than simply hold a pineapple plant. It directly influences root health, growth rate, flowering behavior, and ultimately the size, sweetness, and quality of the fruit that develops. 3. Create the right soil environment, where most pineapple problems begin. When container-grown pineapples struggle, the underlying cause is often hidden below the surface. More plants are lost to poor soil conditions than to pests, diseases, or simple neglect. Many gardeners underestimate how important the growing medium is, but for pineapples, soil quality directly influences root health, growth speed, and eventual fruit production. In their natural habitat, pineapples grow in loose tropical soils that drain rapidly after rainfall. Water moves through quickly, leaving plenty of air around the roots. This balance between moisture and oxygen is essential for healthy growth. Problems arise when pineapples are planted in dense, compact potting mixes. Heavy soils hold water for too long, reducing oxygen availability around the roots. As airflow decreases, roots begin to weaken, creating ideal conditions for rot. Often this damage develops unnoticed until the plant suddenly begins declining. A successful pineapple growing medium must accomplish several goals simultaneously. It should drain efficiently, maintain good aeration, and still provide enough nutrients to support long-term growth. A well-balanced mix often includes a high-quality potting soil to provide structure and basic fertility, perlite or coarse sand to improve drainage and prevent waterlogging, pine bark or orchid bark to increase airflow and reduce compaction, a modest amount of compost to supply slow-release organic nutrients. The finished mixture should feel loose and lightweight rather than dense and sticky. When squeezed in your hand, it should crumble easily instead of forming a solid clump. After watering, excess moisture should flow freely from the container. If water lingers on the surface or drains slowly, the mix likely needs additional aeration materials. For pineapple roots, oxygen is every bit as important as water. Without sufficient airflow, nutrient absorption becomes inefficient, regardless of how much fertilizer is applied. Healthy roots remain firm, active, and light-colored, allowing the plant to develop steadily and prepare for fruit production. Soil acidity also deserves attention. Pineapples prefer a slightly acidic growing environment, generally between pH 5.5 and 6.5. Within this range, nutrients such as potassium, phosphorus, and magnesium remain readily available to the plant. These elements play a major role in fruit development, sweetness, vigor, and overall plant performance. One advantage of container growing is the ability to maintain this ideal balance more easily than in many garden soils. Ultimately, healthy foliage and quality fruit begin with healthy roots, and healthy roots begin with the right soil. 4. Adjust watering and fertilizing to match pineapple needs. One reason many pineapple plants struggle is that they are treated like ordinary container plants. In reality, pineapples have evolved to survive in tropical environments where periods of dryness are common. Their thick leaves store moisture, allowing them to tolerate conditions that would stress many other plants. Because of this adaptation, pineapples generally cope with drought far better than excessive moisture. Overwatering is one of the most common mistakes growers make. Constantly wet soil limits oxygen around the roots and can eventually lead to root damage, even if the plant initially appears healthy. Rather than watering according to a fixed schedule, pay attention to the condition of the soil. Allow the upper layer of the growing medium to dry before watering again. When water is needed, soak the container thoroughly until excess moisture drains from the bottom. Deep watering followed by partial drying creates healthier root conditions than frequent shallow watering. Containers should never be allowed to sit in standing water. Even short periods of waterlogged conditions can stress the plant and slow development. Over time, repeated exposure to excess moisture greatly increases the likelihood of root rot. Nutrient management is also somewhat unique. Unlike many fruiting plants, pineapples are capable of absorbing nutrients through both their roots and leaves. In nature, rainwater-carrying organic matter often collects in the central leaf rosette, providing an additional source of nourishment. Gardeners can take advantage of this characteristic by applying diluted liquid fertilizer as a foliar feed. Lightly misting the leaves and allowing a small amount of solution to settle into the plant's center can improve nutrient uptake and encourage healthy growth. During active growth, a balanced fertilizer with a slightly elevated potassium content is often beneficial. Potassium supports fruit development and influences sweetness, texture, firmness, and overall fruit quality. It also strengthens the plant and improves resilience against environmental stress. Moderation remains important. Applying too much fertilizer can stimulate excessive leaf production while delaying flowering and reducing fruiting performance. Water management plays another critical role in reproduction. Both drought stress and overwatering can interfere with the plant's ability to flower. Consistent moisture levels help signal that growing conditions are favorable, encouraging the transition from vegetative growth to fruit production. Proper watering does more than sustain the plant. It helps prepare the pineapple for its most important stage, fruiting. 5. Encourage flowering and protect. Developing fruit, pineapple plants are patient by nature. Before producing fruit, they spend many months building energy reserves, strengthening their structure, and developing the resources needed to support a harvest. For container-grown plants, this preparation period often lasts between 1 and 1.5 years. Although growth may appear slow, the plant is actively storing energy within its leaves and central stem. Only after reaching sufficient maturity does it begin preparing for reproduction. A pineapple ready to flower usually displays several clear signs. Its leaves are long, upright, and richly green. The rosette appears full and symmetrical, the stem feels firm, and the entire plant looks vigorous and well-established. If the plant still appears small or weak, forcing it to flower prematurely often results in poor fruit quality or no fruit at all. Strong growth must come first. Once the plant reaches maturity, flowering can be stimulated using a traditional technique that relies on ethylene, a natural gas released by ripening fruit. The process is simple. Place the pineapple plant inside a large, transparent plastic bag, together with 1 or 2 ripe apples. Loosely close the bag to retain some of the gas while still allowing limited airflow. Keep the plant in a warm, bright location for several days. As the apples ripen, they release ethylene, which signals to the pineapple that conditions are suitable for flowering. After 3 to 5 days, remove the bag and continue caring for the plant normally. If the pineapple is mature enough, changes often become visible within several weeks. A compact structure begins forming in the center of the plant, eventually followed by colorful flowers. This marks the beginning of fruit development. At this stage, consistency becomes especially important because the plant is redirecting a tremendous amount of energy toward producing a single fruit. Protect it from environmental extremes. Cold temperatures, sudden weather changes, and excessive heat can interfere with fruit development. Frost damage can be particularly harmful, while prolonged heat may reduce fruit quality and slow growth. Watering should remain steady throughout this period. Keep the soil lightly moist without allowing it to become either completely dry or saturated. Inconsistent watering can affect fruit size, shape, and flavor. If fertilizer has been applied regularly, continue using it sparingly. Once flowering begins, stability is more important than rapid vegetative growth. As time passes, the transformation becomes increasingly dramatic. The flower structure enlarges, individual sections merge together, and the familiar pineapple shape begins to emerge. Gradually, a sweet tropical fragrance develops while the fruit transitions from green to shades of golden yellow. Ripening usually progresses from the bottom upward as sugars accumulate within the fruit. Knowing when to harvest is crucial. Unlike many fruits, pineapples do not continue ripening after being picked. The ideal harvest time arrives when the fruit develops a rich golden color, produces a strong, sweet aroma, and yields slightly to gentle pressure. At this stage, sweetness, acidity, and flavor are at their peak. Growing pineapples in containers requires patience, but the reward is remarkable. Homegrown fruit is often noticeably sweeter, juicier, and more aromatic than commercially grown pineapples, which are frequently harvested before reaching full maturity. Pineapples teach an important lesson about gardening. They cannot be rushed. Instead, they reward consistency, patience, and an understanding of their natural growth cycle. Gardeners who provide those things are often rewarded with one of the most satisfying harvests a container garden can produce.